So guys, let's learn today about development of face. We need to know that from fourth week we can appreciate that the face is forming. So in the fourth week, what happens is the formation of the lens placode, formation of the olfactory nasal placode, then stomatodium, which is a primitive mouth, which means in future it will become mouth. Then frontonasal process will be forming, and maxillary as well as mandibular process. Now moving on to the fifth week, there is a formation of the nasal pit in place of your nasal placode, formation of nasal pit in place of your olfactory nasal placode. And around nasal pit you will find two processes, which are your lateral nasal process and medial nasal process. This is your lateral nasal process, this is your medial nasal process. Now this in this fifth week you won't see you will also see formation of the eye, primitive eye. Then in the next week, moving on to the sixth week, we can find one thing. It is not seen in this video, it is not seen in this photograph, but you can see you will be also looking at development of the palatal processes arising from the maxillary process. We'll look that into the next lecture. Now moving on to seventh week, we need to know that fusion of maxillary process with medial nasal process, that is, this is your maxillary process and fusion of medial nasal process takes place at this point, and also fusion of your maxillary and mandibular process as well as two mandibular processes. And then we need to know that this is the line of fusion between maxillary process and lateral nasal process. This is your lateral nasal process. The application of this, why we need to know is that in cleft palate and cleft lip, in cleft lip we can see that if there is a bilateral cleft lip, then there is malunion on both sides of the medial nasal process, and if there is only one unilateral cleft lip, then there will be malunion between or non-union between medial nasal process and one side maxillary process. Again, if you have mandibular processes not meeting together, then it will give to midline mandibular clefts. Can you comment down below what will you see if there is malunion or non-union of maxillary process and mandibular process? Comment down below. The next thing that we need to know is which we have already discussed is this table. It is quite important, and all the references are from Inderbir Singh textbook of embryology. Now in fourth week we saw all the processes that are formed. In fifth week that we saw nasal pits are formed. In sixth week we saw that the palatal processes arises. We'll discuss development of palate in the next video. Then in seventh week what happens is the maxillary processes fuses with the medial nasal process, that also we saw. In eighth week there will be shift. This is some extra information that we didn't see that 8th and 10th week. So in 8th week there is a shift from lateral to frontal position of eye, and bucco-nasal, bucco-nasal, not bucco-pharyngeal, bucco-nasal membrane ruptures, and then in 10th week palatal processes and nasal septum fuses with each other. So this is a brief idea about development of face. Thank you.